have a flag on order, a real flag, and hopefully we'll have it here by next week. And yes, and a pole and a stand. We do have a couple of guests, and on our Zoom meeting, I see we have Juliet Hemphill, and I believe she's a guest of Glenda Du Bois, and I think Linda is also on. And Allison Marker as a guest. Allison, can you introduce your guest? Ooh, interesting. Welcome. I do want to remind you to add to the cup money. We have decided we are going to replenish our cup money, and starting in the second quarter of the Rotary year, we will do probably one charity or one nonprofit per quarter, and that will be handled by our local foundation. So for the time being, we're just building that account back up. Several announcements, a fairly significant one at Tuesday's board meeting. We did move forward. We had proposed the idea that we would meet twice per month in person. It would actually be a hybrid meeting, in person and Zoom. And then the other 2 Thursdays, we would meet Zoom only. The board did approve that. And this is an experiment. I want to emphasize it's probably not permanent. It may be permanent, but it's not intended to be. And we will be meeting in person with a hybrid meeting on the 1st and 3rd Thursday of July, August, and September. The 3rd and 4th Thursdays in those months will be Zoom only. I'm sorry, 2nd and 4th, I misspoke. And the 5th Thursday will be a social, and just by chance, both July and September have a 5th Thursday. So definitely on July 29, we will have a social, and we'll have more details about that. And September, I think it's the 30th, if I remember correctly, we will probably plan some sort of social for that. So actually our first meeting in July will be July 8th. We will not meet July 1 because it's close proximity to the holiday weekend. Have a little bit of breaking news I just found out last night. As you know, our club provided the seed money to help the local human trafficking day center get started. And quickly thereafter, other parties joined in. We ended up with a global grant, and I think our 20 or 25,000, I can't remember which it was multiplied by district money, RI money, and it was international in scope because there's a club in Mumbai that also contributed, and that our total amount ended up being around 125,000, if I remember correctly. So this is how Rotary works, and it's wonderful. But in any event, the RI convention this year is virtual, and some of this stuff is starting literally, I think, tomorrow, and it goes, I believe, to the 12th through the 16th. But the day center will be one of 3 global grants featured in a breakout session. So it'll get some international recognition, and it's this Sunday at noon is the breakout session in question. Now, to attend the virtual RI convention, you do have to register. And if I remember correctly, and I'm kind of looking over Marie, last year was free because it was just kind of thrown together. This year there is a fee. Okay, so I know some of you may already be signed up, but if you are, you will have the opportunity to see the broadcast about our day center. We will have a Rotary Cube meeting coming up on Thursday, the 24th at 6 o'clock Central Time. Just as a reminder, Rotary Cube is our club, Rotary Club of Harlem, Rotary Club of Minneapolis. A very good program lined up. So it'll be, you do have to go and make a reservation. There is a link in the flyer that I attached to yesterday's email. So you can go in there and sign up for that meeting. Want to congratulate or let you know that Michael Oduptan is our newest member. His application was approved at the board meeting, and I think Michael is on Zoom. I see him there. So, and there we go. Thank you for joining, Michael. The rest of these are kind of repeats. We still want you to report your volunteer hours at Weens. Or email address is in yesterday's email. If you've had any kind of leadership training, whether through the Kansas Leadership Center or anywhere else, please let me know. One of our presidential citation requirements is having, I think, 5 people take some kind of leadership training in the past year. And I don't know if we've gotten to our 5. So it's important to report that if you have done that. Our Rotary Rubbish Roundup will be this Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. We will start at the Seward Boat Ramp, which we have adopted. By the way, the board approved that adoption. And we will likely move to the Pocket Park and finish up there because we don't think the Seward Boat Ramp will take all that long. And I think that's it for announcements. Our presentation today is by one of our club members. It's Russ Cobb. I don't have Russ's bio, so I think everybody knows Russ. Russ is going to talk to us about Evergy.
Thanks, Dan. My bio, wow. I'll bring this up. Let me get it at the right spot. Let me get started with this thing, and then I'll tell you a little bit about myself, then we'll talk about Evergy. How about that? One more step. Glad we tested this ahead of time, Steve. All right, that would have been lost right there. Oops. All right, so, and I like to walk and I've got to stand still, so I'm not sharing. Let's see here. Nope, that's not it. I thought I did. Zoom. Share. I clicked, but it hit share. There's what I got to do. Maybe. Is that it? Am I there yet? All right. Slow bandwidth. Yeah, and I got a slow brain. All right. So real quick, background of me real quick. I born and raised North Carolina, graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, came to Kansas in '93, met a Kansas girl in college, and she said, I'm moving to Kansas or back to Kansas. If you want to come with me, you can. And we've been married for 2 years at that point, so I figure I probably should. That's really that in a nutshell. I was a teacher for 6 years, middle school teacher, served my time, I like to say. Made it through that, and then in 2000 decided I want to do something a little different. I have been with Evergy since October of 2000. I say Evergy. I started at Western Resources, then it was Westar Energy, and now it's Evergy. So we're making progression through. I started the IT department. Actually, one time in IT, I spent 6 months. I had 4 different business cards with 4 different company names with the same email address, same phone number, sitting at the same desk. That's really interesting. If you're interested in that story, I'll share it with you sometime. But anyway, I work with the Customer Solutions Group in Evergy. Basically, what my role is working with our large corporate customers, municipalities, state agencies in the Topeka market is what I have. I've got a little slide at the very end that'll show you our group and all the people that take over the whole territory of Evergy. But I was asked to talk about Evergy today, and so I've got a couple of different topics we're going to talk through as far as things you've seen in the news. Steve's been clipping different things he said from the newspaper, different Evergy stories, and I looked through his things and I said, yep, we're going to talk about that. Yep, we're going to talk about that. Yep, we're going to talk about that. So he was all excited about that. So, and that happened this morning after I prepared the presentation. So we're going to go through here real quick so I can keep this operating. Let's talk about Evergy as an overview. So in 2018, Evergy was formed by the creation of KCP&L and Westar Energy joining together. I say KCP&L is actually Great Plains Energy, was the parent company of KCP&L, formed a merger, one company, Evergy. So today we have 1.6 million customers. We've got over 15,000 megawatts of capacity for generation. We have 10,000 miles of transmission, 52,000 miles of distribution. So let's talk about those three things real quick. Talked about generation capacity, I talked about transmission, I talked about distribution. Evergy is a regulated monopoly, which means we are regulated by the Kansas Corporation Commission. We actually own the three components that provides power to you, okay? The generation plants create the power. The transmission facilities bring the power from the plants to the towns, to the substations. And then the distribution takes the power from those substation points to your house and to your businesses. We are a regulated monopoly because we control all three of those. In a deregulated market, all three of those have to be owned by separate entities, okay? So there's other areas around the country that are deregulated. Texas would be one of those. You have multiple companies taking care of your power. You pay it, either you pay multiple bills or you get passed through one bill, but passed through from other companies. So that's really what we are. $14.2 billion of rate base and stuff like that. I'm not sure exactly what all that means, but we're a big company. Here's our area that we cover. The greenish was the old old Westar Energy area, and the orange and blue are the old KCP&L areas. It goes back even further with KCP&L. Was a merger back in, I think, 405 timeframe. They acquired Aquila, and some of that's in the blue area there. So that's our service territory. It shows all of our different plants on there. I know it's a busy slide. If you're looking on a small screen, you're not going to see much. And even from this distance up on the big screen there, it's really small. I'll talk about some of our different plants here in just a minute, what we have and what we're doing things. So let's talk about the winter storm emergency. This happened in February. You're all aware of what happened. We had some rolling blackouts that occurred, and let's back up and figure out why it happened. So the Southwest Power Pool, why have I got that covering up my title? Does that normally do that? Okay, that's okay. No big deal. I just thought it might be easier for everybody to see. The Southwest Power Pool is a regional transmission organization, RTO. There are multiple throughout the country. Basically, they are responsible for making sure the power in our region gets to where it's supposed to go, and everything is controlled and regulated. There's 14 states that have member utilities in the Southwest Power Pool. They're listed there. I won't read them all for you, but it's a whole big area. I've got another slide here in a minute to show a map of that. So the reliability coordination is the thing, making sure the power is reliable. The transmission tariff is there as part of it, making sure everything's done right. Scheduling of generation, which we'll talk about that in specific here in a minute. And then the market operations and all. That's 2014 is when the integrated marketplace took place. And I told you I'd talk a little bit about why things happen differently now than what happened years ago. We've had some cold storms before. We've had some issues before, but we've never had the issue that we had in February. So what happened is, prior to the integrated marketplace in 2014, Westar Energy, that time, controlled our power plants. So Jeffrey Energy Center, if we needed to run power to provide for our customers, we would tell Jeffrey how much to run, right? Control that plant. 2014, we no longer controlled that in sense. The Southwest Power Pool tells us when and how to run that plant, okay? So the control was taken away from us. I say that with a little bit of caveat. There was one time in particular in a December, I don't remember what year it was, since 2014, but we actually got the call to bring Jeffrey down. We already had 2 units down. They said, bring the 3rd unit down. We're like, no, not gonna do that. Because if we'd done that, we'd had to black start the plant. You don't want to do that. I think there's only been 2 black starts in the plant from the time it started in the late 70s. One was when it started, and one other time. Okay, so we don't want to do that. So we said no, then we pushed back, and they said, okay, you can keep it running for a little bit. So sort of makes you wonder what somebody was thinking along the way. But we kept that going. Yes. Black start means there's absolutely no power there at the plant. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah, it's not a good thing. So so we stopped that part of it, but the market operations are controlled by SPP. They tell us when to run plants and all like that. And in the past, say we hit a summer peak and we were running out of power on our system, we would look off market outside of our territory and try to buy power. If we weren't able to, we had what we called an interruptible program where we had large customers that had agreed in advance to sign up that if we needed to interrupt, we would call them, they would shut down for a period of time, and we would be able to keep power to everybody else. In exchange for that, they had an agreement of a rate reduction basically on a regular basis. It was an exchange, it was a good thing to have. We no longer have that specific program anymore. So that's one of the things that's changed with it. And then you have the SPP controlling it. Now, the way it works, the SPP decides in that whole area, and there's our area we're talking about. The red slashed area is the SPP control area. Okay, so the red and blue slash, but you can see all of Kansas, all of Oklahoma, then parts of all these other states. Excuse me. So the SPP now looks at that whole region and says, where do we need power and how do we need to make sure it runs? So they look at pricing and availability of stuff, and our plants are saying, hey, here's what our price is going to be tomorrow. Here's what our availability is tomorrow. We've got this unit down because of maintenance, whatever. And they evaluate all of that, all the utilities involved, and they decide what plants are going to run the next day. So in the February 14th, 16th, we had the cold spell. Information on that, we had 73% of the mainland US was covered in snow. We had 3,000 daily and 79 all-time local temperatures broken in the United States. It was really, really, really cold. And it caused problems in our plants because they weren't able to run as efficiently, our fuel supply, and then we had peak usage for gas and electricity because you, as residents, as customers, were running your stuff at home trying to keep warm, right? So not only was it you, but it was everybody else as well. So we had some peaks that were set as well. So the SPP worked with us, and we worked with the SPP to try to prepare in advance. Evergy, I'm really proud to say that we prevented a lot from happening that could have been a lot worse. There were other areas that had more situations, more severe situations than us. One of the things that we did was we knew about a week ahead of time we were going to have issues with coal. The coal part is you can stock it at the plant, and we keep 30 days supply sitting in our coal yard. The problem is when it gets really cold, that freezes. So the way you get it to transport it back into the plant is you have to go dig it out and sometimes use heat. Heat and coal, not a good combination. So it's very dangerous to do that. So that week prior, we knew what was coming a little bit. And so we worked to get extra trains in that we could bring straight from the train to the plant. So it's a lot easier to take a train car of coal than a whole big pile of coal. And so we did that both at Jeffrey and at Lawrence and at Lacine as well to make sure we had those plants ready to go. So the SPP talked about what they were going to do, had some emergency alerts set up and things. So then we had the storm hit, and then we asked people to conserve. That's one of the things we did. But then on February 15th and 16th, we did have interruption of customers. Now, it doesn't make a lot of media, but we, and I say we, my group and the people that do what I do, working with our large customers, we actually kept us from having a third day of outages because we worked with customers to actually, who aren't on the list to interrupt anymore, we called them and said, can you? And they did. There was one very large facility, I won't say the name, but they produce tires here in Topeka that did a really good job for us. And it's a win-win because here's the deal. I got the wonderful job of calling all my customers and saying, your power may be going out. What's the first question they ask? When? My answer, I don't know. Yeah, so it's an unplanned outage. We don't know, because the way it happens is the SBP calls and says, we need you to shed, and this happened on the 15th. The SBP called and said, we need you to shed 100 megawatts in 15 minutes. Okay, so we went to our rolling stuff. We're okay, no problem. And we have things planned where we have circuits identified for about 400 megawatts. So we can roll through that cycle 4 times without having to repeat, right? So if we do 30 minutes, that gets us through 2 hours. We'd be okay and have another roll again, okay? The next day, the 16th, they called and said, hey, we need you to do 120 in 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, they said, we need another 130. So it doesn't take much math to figure out our 400 megawatts isn't going to get us rolling through multiple times. And that's why on the 16th, we had extended outages, because they asked for more than we had even anticipated them asking for. And we were doing what we could. Yes, sir. Correct. So what we do is, oh, sorry. The question was when I talk about shedding load, we're pulling down the power. So yeah, so what we're doing is a circuit's identified that has so much load on it. We've got this whole list of circuits, and we say this circuit gives us 1 megawatt, this circuit gives us 2 megawatts, this one gives us 10, and we add all those up, and that gives us our 100 megawatts or whatever they ask for, and we can cut that power. Basically, these are circuits that we can control remotely, that we basically turn off at the substation, turn off that whole circuit. And that's what we had to do. Now, the other thing that happens is when it's really cold, you turn equipment off, you've got to turn it back on, and not everything comes back on like it's supposed to. So we had issues with that as well. Because the cold weather, equipment doesn't like cold weather. And so we had some issues with that. Now, some people say, well, why did you pick this circuit? Why did you pick that circuit? We're picked circuits based off of what was give us the most bang for our buck. And we tried to make sure we identified critical infrastructure, hospitals, for example. We made sure they weren't on there. We tried our best to make sure water treatment facilities, although we failed. We had one that we did not. And that was a mapping error is what happened on that. We thought it was on a different circuit. It got changed in the field, and we found out later that it was not. So that's part of the thing. You know, the best information you got is what you work with, right? And times you have wrong information. So we try to identify that and make sure we're careful who, and it's not based off anything other than the largest area with the simplest, and also does that circuit have the capability? Not all of our circuits have the capability of turning them off remotely. Especially some of our really rural areas, we don't have that on the circuits. So we're not going to turn those off because we'd have to send somebody out to do it manually and then somebody to do it back. And it's just, it doesn't work that way. 15-minute notification, we can't get somebody out there. So that's really what happened with the power. Questions on that real quick before I get on to Grid Act and securitization? Yes. Yes. It can, yes, yes. When people, okay, so the question was when people, sorry, when people the power goes out, they crank it back up to recover, basically, does that sort of defeat the problem? And it can, and it also, it increases their usage, which then their bill goes up, and they say, well, my bill went up because you did this, and that's not really the case. I will tell you, as far as the cost goes, we are evaluating all of that. We have not passed any costs on yet. The best way I can tell you is think about in 07 when we had the ice storm that went through. Basically, we have all these expenses related to the ice storm. We put them in a bucket, right? And we said, here's what our expenses are. We've done the same thing with the expenses for the storm, whether it be the increased fuel prices or whatever else that we had to deal with. We put them in a bucket. We will take that to the KCC. The KCC will help us figure out how to implement that over time. And so you're not going to see a big, huge spike in a bill or anything like that. More than likely, you're going to see a number come out. You're going to go, wow, that's a lot of money. When you do it on your bill, you're going to see per kilowatt hour, it's going to be like thousandth of a penny per kilowatt hour. It's going to be very, very low in the end. And I don't know the exact number. I'm just throwing that thousandth of kilowatt hour. It's just, it may be a 1.5 thousandth of kilowatt. I don't know. So I don't know what the number is going to be, but it's going to be very small in the end, because what we'll do, like 07 ice storm, we spread it out like 10 years. So we spread that amount out. So that's, I don't know what we're doing with this storm, but we're doing something very similar to that. Let's talk real quick about GRID Act and securitization. So the GRID Act is the Grid Reinvestment Innovation Dependability Act. It was passed this session in the legislature. We were in favor of this, and here's why. It's a win-win for us and for you as customers. So basically what happens is, let me back up one. It allows us to retire older, more expensive generation that's no longer in use. Now I'm going to talk about some of the plants that are going to be coming down here in a minute. Plants have a life expectancy, and their costs are built in over that lifetime. As we close plants, those costs are then spread out over a time as well. And if you're talking 20, 30, 40 years, you're paying for them after they're long gone, or you're paying for them as they finish out. What this does, it allows us to basically take that facility, put it into a separate account, basically, and then sell bonds to pay for that. So right now, the way Evergy stockholders make money is we have a rate of return, right? And that's between 8 and 9%. KCC regulates that, okay? And that money, everything you do, 8 to 9% is part of that return for the stockholders. So on the existing plants, you're paying 8 to 9% for those plants for a return. By doing this, we pull them out of the rate base. You're not paying the 8 to 9%. We're selling bonds, and we're going to pay 2 to 4% on the bonds over a shorter or over a different period of time, which the people who are investing in the bonds make the money. It's not the shareholders making the money on the rate of return. Make sense? So, and in the end, what happens is there's a bill surcharge that gets added. You're paying the 2 to 4% for the bond part, but you're not paying the 8 to 9%. The return on equity. Here's what that looks like over time. This is not dollars. This is just an example of the way it looks. The light blue would be as if we do it on the 8 to 9% spread out over those years, and the dark blue is at that flat 10-year 2 to 4% rate. You can see, it's not a math major here, but you can look at blues and see there's a lot less of the dark blue than there is of the light blue, right? And that's really where we're coming down to is securitization. It's really simple. Yes. So the question is, do we normally do it on 10-year or can vary to 15? It really depends. I don't know that the Act specifically says it has to be 10. That's the example we're using right now. But the KCC, whatever we do will be approved by the KCC. But I don't know if the Act specifically says the rate itself or whether that'll be a KCC approval. But the Act that they passed allows us to be able to. The KCC will still regulate how we do it. Yeah. So, and that's the big thing too. KCC regulates everything we do. So there's a lot of hoops we jump through to get things done and keep things going. So, that was I can't say that word, securitization. It's very simple. It's a simple thing to begin with. Okay, still doing good over time. Sustainability and transformation plan. This is a 5-year strategic plan we put together. This is all our talking points. You can find them on our website. If you look up STP, Evergy, you'll find the information. The middle part is really what I want to talk about. Grid generation transition. We're going to talk about that in particular. Customer experience improvement and cost competitiveness. Basically, we're looking to make things better. That's really what this is saying. We're going to be trying to do things smart so we can stay a cost-effective utility for our customers. That's really what we're trying to do. And this is our plan to do that. So our generation transition, we're trying to figure out how we can balance sustainability of our plants as well as reliability. We've got to have the power. I'll give you an example. Excuse me. I was doing a lighting audit over in Lawrence at Hy-Vee about, probably about 2005, 2006. And I'm in front of Hy-Vee, the Hy-Vee on 6th Street is now closed. I was in front of that, in the front entryway, and I'm sitting there looking up at lights. This guy walks up and says, "Hey, you work for Evergy?" And I looked at my shirt. Is that Evergy or Westar? I guess it's Westar. And I said, "Yeah, it was Westar. Yeah, I do." He goes, "I got a question for you." He says, "Okay." He goes, "Why don't you go all wind? Why don't you go all wind?" And I said, "Okay, we will." He goes, "You will?" I said, "But here's what I need from you." He goes, "Okay." I said, "I need you to make sure that whenever someone turns on their light switch, they go, 'It didn't come on, the wind's not blowing. Okay, I'm good.' Every time someone sits down at a computer and they go to turn it on, they say, 'That's right, the wind's not blowing, I'm good.'" Every manufacturing facility or every school or every hospital, when they go to use electricity and say, "That's right, the wind's not blowing, I'm good." When you get that to happen, we'll go all wind. He goes, "Huh," trying to walk off. So, and the point being, we're not stuck on one thing or the other. We're trying to figure out what's the most reliable and sustainable, okay? Reliability of energy. Reliability means the power's there when you need it, okay? And we want to make sure we do that. The technologies are out there, and I'll talk a little bit about the clean energy that we're doing. It's great. Solar and wind are great. The costs are getting great. They're getting at a really low level. The problem is the sun doesn't shine 24/7. The wind doesn't blow 24/7, right? So we have to get that backup, right? We have to have something there when it's not. And our only thing right now is still your coal and nuclear and natural gas. Those are still the things we have to have. We're looking to the future to get there, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. So we have retired over 2,200 megawatts of fossil fuel. We've got a wind portfolio of 4,270 megawatts. Okay, just to give you an idea, 1 megawatt powers about 1,000 homes in general. Okay, so that's just a real general idea of when we talk about megawatts and all. We've reduced our carbon emissions by 51% from 2005. So we've done a lot of stuff trying to make sure we're getting where we need to be. There's our megawatt capacity. Right now we are, and my little thing showed up. We're 37% coal, 30% natural gas. Wind is at 25%. Then you've got solar is very small. We have changed. When I started with the company, that coal that's 37% was about 70%. That's a big change. And that's the Westar. So now we're looking at combined companies, but when Westar was about 70% coal at that point. So we want to make sure that we have a plan to do this. Our integrated resources plan is that. Basically, we're going to try to do things the right way, make sure our plant's there. We've reduced the carbon emissions by 50%. I said by 2020, we're going to 70% by 2030, and we want to be net zero by 2045. Our IRP is the first time we put out net zero, but that's what we're going for. That's our goal. Okay. I'm not going to get into the net zero too much in the fact of sometimes it can become a little bit of a shell game. I understand that because you're not going to zero. It's net zero, a little bit different. But we'll go there. So the generation, this is where we expect to be. 2010, we're at 52% coal right now. This is what our generating capacity is. Sorry, 2010 was 52%. We're at 40% 2020. 27% wind. We expect to be 2030 by 33% wind. You're going to see the solar increase to 13% by 2030. We're going to add more solar. And it's really hard. Let's see if I can move that. There, that's better, maybe. Okay, sorry. Out there 2040, if you notice the really light shaded green area, that's 19%. That's what we call our firm dispatchable resource. Firm dispatchable resource, we don't know what that's going to be yet. So, and here's why. Here's why. It's whatever the technology is going to be to take care of. It could be natural gas if we still have to use natural gas at that point, or it could be battery storage. Okay. Battery storage is going to be the next big key to wind and solar. Once we get battery storage at the utility scale, we will be able to store it up and use it, and then it will be dispatchable. We can tell it when to run, right? That when the battery will tell it when to start, when to push it out. That's what we're going to be at. And if the technology gets there, that's what we're going to be at that 19%. Okay, so the firm dispatchable resources name we came up with to say, we don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be there. And whatever it is, we're going to use. We are going to be closing some things down. Our 5-year implementation period there shows the top. That little orangish thing there says Lawrence Energy Center 2023. We're closing Lawrence Energy Center. Yeah. Anybody been out near Tecumseh Energy Center lately? It's gone. It's not there. I drove out there the other day for the first time in a long time. I had a meeting out there with Futamura and talked to one of our guys, and I said, guys going out there, I say, so what's the deal with the plant out there? What plant? I was like, oh, okay. I had been out there a long time, and sure enough, it is gone. So Lawrence Energy Center, those 2023. The rest of this stuff on here is sort of projections. Lawrence Energy Center will be closed in 2023. That is a given. The rest of this stuff is sort of projections. If you look down 2030, we expect to close Jeffrey Energy Center 1. And then now my slide, and my thing's moved again on me here. There we go, baby. Okay, so Jeffrey Energy Center 2 and 3, we expect, sorry, 3 was in 2030. 1 and 2 will be in 2039. Is what our projections are at this point. Lacine in 1 in 2032, Lacine 2 in 2033. Again, you see that little green leaf, that's the dispatchable income, or dispatchable resource, firm dispatchable resource. So that's the stuff that we don't know. We'll be adding some stuff through there. All right. Questions on that so far? Yes. Okay. So the question was, how will grids sustain electric cars in the future with everything else growing? Yeah, so the part of it is the way the systems are now. We have peaks through the day. Most of our big peaks typically are in the afternoon from about 2 to 6, which is when air conditioning is coming on and people are coming home from work during that time frame. That's our big peak. Overnight, we don't have those peaks. So if people charge their cars at night, that will help level out the peak. So instead of coming up in the day and dropping off in the evening, and then coming back up in the morning, then coming back later on, you'll see more of a flat peak. We actually have the generation to take care of that now, if that is the pattern that people use to charge cars. Yes. Yes. Cybersecurity of it. Okay, so the cybersecurity of the grid, I actually participated in a group. We've been looking at cybersecurity for about 12 years. And I, back in 2009, I think was the time frame, I worked on a group called Aurora. If you want to figure out how people can tear up stuff in a utility, Google Aurora effect and utilities. And basically what happens is, if someone can control a piece of equipment, whether it be a transformer, whether it be mainly it's pieces of equipment like motors in facilities, if they can turn it off and turn it back on out of sync, it basically shreds the motor, okay? And there's actually pictures of them doing that in a controlled environment on a utility scale. So we had a whole big group that looked at that, trying to figure out how it affected our customers and everything else. we've got a lot of systems in place for that. One of the things we did with that project alone was we identified every single piece of equipment in the company that would be connected through the internet. And a lot of our stuff, we went back and made sure it cannot be controlled through the internet, through any kind of connection. It's not hardwired at all. There are some things that are hardwired, but those are more control that tell things what to do, but the actual equipment itself is not connected to the internet. So that's the cybersecurity part. And I'm not a cybersecurity expert. You probably are back there, right? So there's a lot of work that's been done though. But I mean, going back 12 years ago, I was involved in how it would affect our large customers. And I didn't get into the details of a whole lot of it because I'm not a cybersecurity person. But we have people that are employed that are cybersecurity people. Okay? Question? Wolf Creek, trying to think, do we have Wolf Creek on here? No, it's not on here. Wolf Creek, let me think here. So let me get my math right. 25. We're scheduled right now to the life of the plant scheduled for 2045. The reason was the original was a 40-year, starting 85, 40 years, and then a few years ago we extended that for another 20 years, so it got to 2045. That doesn't mean it can't be extended out. The biggest issue with Wolf Creek is the extension of the life of the plant is the storage of the spent rods. That's really your biggest drawback. And the 2045 includes putting the latest rods to cask storage, dry cask storage versus water storage, which is the way that they are now. So we will have to get to that point. The pool of holding the spent rods was built for 40 years. To extend that out, we have to take the first rods out, put them in dry cask storage on site. We could extend that further if we keep doing that, but I don't know for sure what the plan is on Wolf Creek, other than what I know about the life of the plant so far. Other questions? Yes, sir. Train car loads to power Jeffrey in a day. Well, we can do the math probably on it. We get anywhere from 2 to 3 trains a week, and each train's anywhere from 100 to 120 cars. That's what we get in, and it varies as they come through there. So as far as the particular plant, how many it runs through, I'm not sure. We'd have to do the math on that. I don't think it's that much anymore. We don't run Jeffrey as much as we used to. So Jeffrey is it basically was a 2,400 megawatt facility when it was originally built. 3 units, 800 megawatts apiece. Over time, they derate them to where they don't go as high. We did some work a few years ago to actually get them back up again. So we could run that. We don't run them near as much as we used to. A lot of times only 1 unit is running at a time. So, and that's pretty much the typical story for a coal plant. Over time, it gets to where it's not as efficient to use. So we make changes and don't use as much. And with wind and solar coming out, we've been able to replace a lot of that on a regular basis. So real quick, one last thing. I know Stan's getting ready to throw me out. Talked about rates, talked about savings. Here's where our merger savings are so far. We talked about how the merger was going to save money. The 2018, we saved 23 million. We had projected 30, so we're a little bit under on that year. 2019, we were 40 million over, saving more than $40 million of what we had planned on. And the 2020, that figure shows 115 million. That was only through the first 3 quarters. That was not for the full year. I haven't seen the full year yet. We're projected to save 145 million that year. We, at this time, when this slide came out, we were projected to save beyond that. So that's where it's at. What effect does that have? Here's what the rates have done since 2018. Kansas rates are down 4.3% overall. Missouri rates are down 2.5%. You can see the areas around us have went up. One of the things that made our rates higher, especially the Westar side of things, is we prepared for a lot of things on energy, as far as when Obama's administration came in, a lot of renewables, as well as getting coal off. And we not coal off, getting it off, but also getting it cleaner. So we did a lot of stuff in our plants to meet those guidelines. A lot of the surrounding areas did not do that with their plants. And when Trump was elected, they still hadn't done their work. We had, and things changed, and they sort of laughed at us and were like, well, okay, we spent extra. That's why our rates went up and theirs didn't, right? Because we're spending money to do the stuff for the environment. Now they're going to have to start, and that's what you're seeing here, along with our mergers helping too. So, yes, sir. Yeah, so the question was the SPP, why did we go to the SPP and let them control and all that? Was a federal thing. So the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission created the regional transmission organizations and set those. The one you've heard about in the news is ERCOT. That's what they are. They're same things as SPP, it's just different area. And I think there's either 7 or 8 RTOs throughout the whole country. But it came down from the federal government to do that. Has it helped reduce costs? Somewhat. It's taken the control away a little bit. For example, when we build a transmission line, a new transmission line in our service territory, if we want to be the ones to build it, we have to bid on it like everybody else. Back in the old day, if we wanted to build a new transmission line, if we wanted to build it, we'd build it. And now we have to bid if we're going to be the ones to build it. So it's a little bit different. Does that save money? That might. It could, because if you're in a bidding process, could potentially save some money there. Okay. All right, I told you I'd show you that picture. That's all the people that take care of the large customers in Kansas and Missouri. There's a whole big group of people there. So, all righty.
I see Roger. Yes. Anyway, I've seen Roger do general patent. It's quite good. We're a little bit past time, so I just want to announce, and by the way, Russ, thank you. Great information. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. I always like to leave Rotary knowing something I didn't know before, and now I know some more. So speaker next week is about Constitution Hall, and that will be Chris Meinhardt, Grant Glenn, and I don't know, maybe some others. So Chris is giving me a stare like, did I know I was doing this? Maybe Grant's doing it, but I think you're going to be helping. So you have a week to prepare. And great things going on at Constitution Hall if you've driven down Kansas Avenue. But quite a few of our board members, Terry is our current president, David's on the board, Chris is our project manager. I know I'm leaving somebody else out. Well, Terry's president, yes. And right, Richard is now on the board as of about a month or two ago. And I'm on the board. So Anyway, let's stand, do the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And will it be fun and kind? Hold up the button.